Get ready for a creepy ride into the mysterious world of Portlock, Alaska. A place where a deadly cryptid has reshaped history and forced an entire community to say, fuck this place. Get some toilet paper ready, cause you're gonna need it. On the southern coast of Alaska, where the wind howls like a pissed-off banshee and the sea crashes against ragged cliffs, all that's left of Portlock is a mining tunnel, heaps of rubble, and rusted cannery equipment. The people of this once bustling shipping and canning port bailed the fuck out of there around 1950 when residents decided that towns closer to the shiny new Alaska Route 1 state highway were a hell of a lot more practical. Nestled on the southern edge of the Kenai Peninsula along Port Chatham Bay, roughly 120 miles south of Anchorage, Portlock was doomed to become a ghost town. At least, that's the official story. However, that story is a steaming pile of bullshit compared to what really went down. People started disappearing without a damn trace. Bodies began turning up in the most horrific, gut-wrenching ways imaginable. Whispers of a creature so terrifying it made an entire village up and vanish into thin air. And get this. Portlock wasn't abandoned once or twice. It got abandoned 4 goddamn times. Over the centuries, at least 4 different groups of people tried to stake a claim in this cursed patch of Alaska, only for every one of them to haul ass and never look back. The namesake of this forsaken little village was British Captain Nathaniel Portlock. In 1786, this guy landed, surveyed every inch of that land, and discovered eerie remnants of a native village. His crew scratched their heads over why the natives would leave such a sweet area. It had a shitload of game and fish, so they would never go hungry. However, the crew started getting hit with a mysterious, bone-chilling sickness. It wasn't your everyday flu. It came in waves of gut-punch fear and debilitating illness. The poor bastards were so fucking terrified and weakened that they begged Captain Portlock to pack up and get the fuck out of there. And so, Portlock did what any sensible captain would do when his crew starts losing their shit. He left. Nevertheless, this wasn't the first time something like this occurred. Portlock had a fucked up history before that too. Just 6 damn years before Captain Portlock's arrival, Spanish explorers had already landed on that same strip of cursed land and decided to set up shop. They too were baffled by the fact that a native village had abandoned this seemingly perfect spot for survival. Like Portlock's crew, these Spanish dudes started getting sick as shit. Some of them died, and those who survived were haunted by constant, creeping dread. The sound of mournful, bone-chilling cries echoed from the depths of the forest. The sickening sounds would creep closer and closer until the Spanish, full-on shit in their drawers, finally decided to haul ass and leave just like the Brits did later on. So what the actual fuck was this special sickness that sent 2 separate groups of experienced explorers packing? One theory points to infrasound, a low-pitched frequency that some animals produce. While humans can't hear that shit, we can sure as hell feel its nauseating effects. Vomiting, dizziness, and an overwhelming sense of dread. Think of it like nature's own fucked up alarm system, similar to what tigers and sperm whales use to paralyze their prey. If Portlock's men were getting hit with infrasound, they were fucking lucky to get the hell out when they did, 'cause those who came after weren't nearly as fortunate. Soon, they'd discover that the predator lurking in Portlock wasn't lions or tigers or bears. It was something far more monstrous and mystifying. For over 80 years, Portlock sat abandoned like a festering wound on the face of Alaska. It was a ghost town in the truest sense, empty, forsaken, and dripping with a history of terror and mystery. Then, suddenly, everything changed. In 1867, a nomadic group called the Sukpiaq rolled into town. These folks were all about survival. Drawn to Portlock by the endless supply of large clams, easy-to-catch fish, and abundant moose, which the natives had been hunting for fucking centuries, they thought, hell yeah, we could set up camp here and never go hungry. Then, for a hot minute, it seemed like Portlock might actually stick around. They settled in the bay, partied like a rock star, and reveled in the bounty of the land. But, of course, shit always goes to hell in Portlock. Within a month, the Sugpiaq were brutally attacked. And get this shit, the attackers weren't after their food. They were after the people themselves. The Sugpiaq described these motherfuckers as cannibal giants, raiding their village with such ferocity that nearly every damn night turned into a blood-soaked nightmare. At first, these natives fought back tooth and nail, determined to protect their new home. But the relentless, animalistic savagery of the giants eventually broke their spirits. When the forest had more game to hunt, the giants took a break. But when the prey ran low, those bastards returned, hungering for human flesh. It wasn't long before the Sugpiaq were forced to pack up and flee in 1905, taking with them horrifying tales of man-eating giants and brutal, relentless raids that would forever stain the legend of Portlock. It stayed that way for a while, then something happened. Portlock remained a cursed wasteland until 1921, when another group, the nomadic Russian Aleutiq, decided to give the damn place a shot. These folks were a different fucking breed. They came packing some serious 20th century industry. They set up a bustling cannery to produce salmon, built a post office, a school, and other institutions to turn Portlock into a modern town. But this wasn't just another quaint fishing village. It was built on the bones of a legacy soaked in blood and terror. The Aleutiq had ancestral ties with the Sugpiaq and had heard all about the raids by the so-called Nantinuk, translated loosely as half-man, half-beast, from the native Alaskan Denino word Nantina, which means those who steal people. I wonder how they got that name. Determined not to cross paths with these unpredictable dickheads, they enforced strict rules. A nightly curfew, armed guards protecting schools, the cannery, and actively patrolling the streets. Also, a 100% lockdown policy during foggy days, and going into the forest at night. They'd heard the stories, so they weren't going to be dumb enough to piss off whatever the hell was out there. During foggy days, they could sometimes hear the Nantinuk prowling empty streets. But since everyone was locked indoors, it, along with its smell, would eventually drift away, like a fart. For about a decade, these strict-ass rules worked, and Portlock thrived under the semblance of order. But as the Alutiiq community grew bigger and cockier, by 1930, they started letting their guard down. They got so damn complacent that in 1931, everything went to fucking hell. A logger by the name of Andrew Kamluck decided to venture deep into the forest to chop down a tree, ignoring all the bullshit warnings. When he didn't return, his buddies went looking for him. What they found was enough to make even the hardiest soul piss themselves. Kamluck's head was brutally caved in by a log-moving sled that no human could possibly move. His loyal sled dogs had been torn to shreds, and the sled itself lay flung far away as if thrown by some monstrous force. Then came the incident with Tom Larson. That poor bastard was chopping wood for fish traps when he spotted a large, terrifying, hairy creature on the beach. It was standing like a human, but was too large and furry to be one. Larson, shaking like a goddamn leaf, bolted back home and returned with a gun, ready to take the fucker down. He had the creature in his sights, ready to pull the trigger. The creature turned, locked eyes with him, and for some inexplicable reason, Larson couldn't bring himself to fire a single shot. That moment of frozen terror sealed the fate of Portlock's reputation. The creature was getting bolder and was clearly targeting humans. Following Kamluck's grisly fate, more residents started vanishing. First, a few gold prospectors went missing. People figured, they were off prospecting for longer than expected. Then, a group of hunters disappeared under similarly mysterious circumstances. A clear pattern emerged. Every disappearance was creeping closer and closer to the town, like an inevitable death sentence. Many bodies were washed into the bay from the rivers that fed it, suggesting the people, trappers and miners, had been killed in the hills and forests above Portlock. You'd think the horror would end there, but hell no. The creature's appetite for human flesh seemed to have only grown over time. One day, villagers found a body that would turn even the most skeptical Alutiiq into firm believers of the Nantinaq. The body was washed down the mountain by spring rains. It was torn and dismembered in a way no bear was capable of. The Alutiiq started getting stricter about going out and started posting more guards, but nothing could stop the force of nature that was snatching and mauling residents. Up to 36 bodies had turned up along trails, rivers, and in the bay, all grossly mangled beyond recognition. And many bodies never turned up. People would go missing and stay missing. Official reports claimed 15 people went missing, but the locals swear that number was way fucking higher. The brutal, almost ritualistic mutilation of the bodies was something no bear or wolf could ever fucking achieve. The cannery workers got so freaked out, they collectively refused to show up for work. They only agreed to return when promises of around-the-clock armed guard protection were thrown in. Then, in a move that could only be described as the ultimate mic drop of terror, in one night, the entire town up and vanished in 1950. Every damn soul, except for one stubborn post office worker, abandoned Portlock. This guy practically barricaded himself in the post office. He reported hearing the heavy, deliberate steps of a two-legged creature roaming the deserted streets. Luckily for him, the post office eventually closed its doors and he too hightailed it the hell out of there. By 1951, Portlock was officially a ghost town with not a single living person in sight. You'd think that would be the end. But it wasn't. Roughly 18 years after Portlock's mass exodus, a hunter ventured into the forest near the ghost town looking for wild goats. Instead, he got chased by something that made him run for his damn life. At first, he thought someone was stalking him. He heard slow, deliberate footsteps with distant rustling. But then, in a split second, those footsteps turned into a frenzied, blood-curdling, oh shit chase. The creature was screaming hellish cries and made sounds so horrific that they would haunt his nightmares for years to come. He didn't stop running until he was safely out of the forest. Fast forward 5 years to 1973, and 3 hunters found themselves forced to take shelter in Portlock during a storm. They couldn't sleep a wink that night because something kept circling their camp, growling and making unintelligible yet deeply threatening sounds. Each of those hunters swore on their lives that the thing walked on 2 fucking feet. This two-legged terror wasn't an isolated case. Another group of hunters tracking a moose noticed giant man-like footprints over 18 inches long that trailed behind the animal. They came across a patch of flattened grass that suggested the moose had been brutally wrestled to the ground by something monstrous. It was crystal fucking clear who won the battle. The moose's own tracks stopped abruptly, but those massive footprints marched upward into the mountains away from the flattened area. Obviously, a human being can't wrestle a moose to the ground. That's not to say that some folks wouldn't try, though. One particularly vivid account came from a local resident who witnessed something straight out of a goddamn horror flick. He saw a huge, hairy man who he said looked like the fucking devil himself demolishing the fish wheels used to process salmon at the cannery. In a panic, the guy rushed to get his gun, only to find that when he returned, the beast was just standing there, staring at him. Then, as mysteriously as it appeared, it walked away, leaving the man reeling in shock and disbelief. These were not people who were easily scared by wildlife, and furthermore, they were well aware of the predators in the area. And if you think the crazy train stops there, there's one more mind-bending encounter. The most recent encounter happened in 1990. An Anchorage paramedic got called to the Eagle River Jail to help a 70-year-old Alutiiq inmate who'd suffered a heart attack. The poor bastard was lying there, completely limp and unresponsive. So the paramedic tried to interact with him by telling him about his adventures. The inmate remained unresponsive until the paramedic mentioned that he had gone hunting in the forests around Portlock. Suddenly, the old fucker sprang to his feet, grabbed the medic by his shirt with both hands, and demanded over and over, "Did you see it? Did it bother you? Did you see it? Did it bother you?" The terror in his voice was so obvious that even as guards rushed in to drag him away, his repeating questions echoed through the halls like a cursed mantra. Did you see it? Did it bother you? Something made him lose his shit. Now, while this whole twisted saga makes one hell of a damn story, there are always those asshole critics with alternative explanations that they love to throw around. They claim that all the semi-shredded bodies attributed to the Nantinuk could just be the work of bear attacks. Bears, after all, are known to stand on their hind legs. And maybe they're more ferocious than anyone gives them credit for. Some skeptics can even argue that Kamluk's head injury might have been a freak logging accident. Maybe he hit his head on a branch while sledding, and that his dogs were simply unfortunate victims of a bear attack. A bear attack could explain why the dogs were ripped apart, but Kamluk's body was mostly intact. His body wasn't near a bloody tree branch or even his own sled. But what about his dogs? They were torn to shreds. All of them. That was not an accident. Once again, the explanation here is bears. Furthermore, the skeptics allege that the disappearances and mutilations, especially of those 15 to 30 people, were due to the inherent risks of being a fisherman or a logger in the brutal Alaskan wilderness. On the flip side, the locals state that no bear would ever do such fucked up shit. By the 1950s, the legend of the Nantinuk had fucking exploded, spreading like wildfire throughout Alaska. Every account of being stalked by a two-legged creature since then has been chalked up by some folks to hallucinations or just made-up bullshit. Critics argue that the uprooted trees found driven into the ground upside down could be debunked as the work of a weird-ass tornado or some other natural phenomenon. Oh, okay. But come on, when you've got nearly 140,000 bears roaming Alaska and many inhabit forests near towns and villages, none of them have ever been such a terrible threat that a whole goddamn community would vanish overnight. It's just not fucking feasible. On top of that, killing a bear that is endangering your life or property is legal in Alaska. So why didn't the Alutiiq form a hunting party and take that fucker out instead of leaving everything behind? It certainly makes more sense to do that. And here's where shit gets even more twisted. An Alutiiq named Melania Kell blew the lid off the Nantinuk story in a 2009 Homer Tribune interview. She insisted that the creature was out there killing people. Sally Ash, her cousin, was her translator during the interview. Even though Sally helped communicate Kell's story to the public, she didn't support it herself. 12 years after Kell's original interview, Sally Ash told the reporter that there really was no killing of people and that there was nothing to see in Portlock. Right. But the more she tried to downplay what happened, the more it looked like she was trying to hide something. Obviously. They moved because of the economy, schools, and the church, Ash told a reporter. This tracks with the timeline of the development in the region. This whole dumpster fire only deepens the mystery. If the Nantinuk is just some harmless, hairy hermit, then why the fuck did the ancestors of these folks set up such strict and paranoid rules? And why, even today, do people tread lightly in that area, careful not to make a peep or disturb something they know is lurking? To this day, many locals swear that Portlock is haunted, not by ghosts in the traditional sense, but by the lingering, unspeakable terror of that damn creature that forced an entire community to run for its lives. So here we are, left with a ghost town, a trail of unsolved mysteries, and a creature whose very existence has been twisted by time, terror, and a lot of damn bad luck. Portlock, Alaska isn't just a ghost town, it's a living, breathing legend of fear. A place where history bleeds through every rusted piece of cannery equipment and every abandoned tunnel. And while critics may try to rationalize the horror away with boring explanations about bears and logging accidents, anyone with a shred of common sense knows that something truly fucked up went down in Portlock. Whether it was infrasound, a bloodthirsty beast, or the twisted legacy of man-eating giants, one thing is for sure. This is one goddamn story that'll haunt your dreams. We've dissected every damn detail of the twisted history of Portlock, from the eerie beginnings with Captain Portlock and those damn Spanish explorers, to the blood-soaked raids of the Sugpiaq, and finally to the modern-day sightings that have everyone questioning if any rational explanation can ever cover up this fucked-up legacy. Portlock remains a testament to the fact that sometimes truth is far stranger and far more terrifying than any bullshit explanation you can come up with. So, next time you find yourself in the middle of nowhere, remember Portlock, a place where the past isn't dead. It's just waiting for some poor bastard to stumble into its cursed territory and get a first-hand taste of the horror that still lingers in the Alaskan night. And if you ever sense those goddamn infrasound waves or catch a glimpse of something too monstrous to be human, just remember, some things are better left the fuck alone. If you dug this video, tap that like button and subscribe. That way you won't miss out on more of my fucked up commentary. And besides, I really do appreciate it. So, what do y'all think? Is the Nantinuk still out there waiting for its next meal? Let me know in the comments. And if you really want to do me a solid, click on that join button below the title and become part of my YouTube membership. For as little as $2.99, y'all can help me out more than you know. Until next time, y'all keep it real, keep it chill, and stay creepy! Catch you on the flip. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. You are the real beast.